Welcome to the Flip to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Sean Terry. Hello again, this is Sean Terry from the Flip to Freedom podcast, and we are on episode number 83. Now, if you are joining us for the very first time, I'd like to welcome you and let you know that I have designed this podcast for you to give you a vehicle on how to get out of the rat race, how to get out of corporate America, how to quit your job, how to be done with commuting, how to be done with the just be done with having a job. Imagine, one day you wake up and you don't have to go to work because you have a business that you're working in, or you have plenty of money where you don't have to go to work. Well, you're probably thinking, how the heck am I going to do that? There's no way I can do that. Well, you're going to learn how to do that by flipping houses. And this is where you can break into the real estate game. I don't care if you don't have any cash, if you don't have any credit, or if you've never bought a house before. Wholesaling houses is how you can get in the real estate game. And what I teach is exactly how to go out and wholesale properties using no cash and credit. And it's as simple as marketing for a motivated seller, finding a seller that has to get out of the house. Maybe it's trash. Maybe it's a divorce situation. They just need to sell it quick. Maybe it's an inherited property. Maybe it's a fire damaged property. Maybe it's an absentee owner that just needs to get out of the house because the tenant trashed it and he doesn't want to put any more money into it. It could be any of those. You can sign a contract with that seller. And let's say you have a $100,000 house. It's all fixed up. And let's say you can get under contract for $50,000. Well, now what do you have? You have a sellable asset. You have a $50,000 contract. Now, you don't put up $50,000. You don't write a check for $50,000. All you have is a contract for $50,000. And on that contract, there's a price, $50,000, and a closing date, 30 days. Now, within those 30 days, you have the right to market the property. You can put it out and market it to cash buyers, buyers looking for properties that are a deep discount. Now, I know when I first started, I was like, who the heck is going to buy a property cash? Oh my gosh, holy cow. Do you have any idea? There are so many cash buyers out there looking for smoking deals. They will close as fast as humanly possible. So now you find that buyer. Let's say you find a buyer for $60,000. What are you going to do? You're going to sign a contract with that buyer. And then you're going to take those contracts, right? And you're going to bring them to a closing agent. Now, you're going to instruct that closing agent to do two different things. One, you can do an assignment where you sell the contract for $10,000 per se, or you can do a simultaneous close. Now, a simultaneous close is where the buyer brings in the $60,000 cash, $10,000 goes to you, and $50,000 goes to the seller. Now, the seller's happy, you're happy, you walk away with $10,000, and the buyer's happy, he gets a deep discount property. Now, I can tell you this. If you do one deal a month, you're doing good. What if you just do one deal? Instead of $10,000, you make $5,000? Well, what's it going to take on your current job to get a $5,000 increase a month in your salary? Who knows, right? But if you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 deals a month, you're living large. And if you go out and do 10, 15 deals a month, you're doing phenomenal. And that's what I do. I run a full-time wholesaling operation here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I do anywhere from 10 to 20 deals a month, every single month, just doing exactly what I told you. And it's phenomenal, and it's a blast. And in April of 2010, I started this podcast because I love real estate, and I love sharing the intricacies of exactly how this works. Now, I have 82 different episodes out there that explain in precise detail on exactly what you need to do to go out and, number one, get your first check. Number two, ramp it up and get 1 year's worth of income in the bank. Number three, which is phase 3, is to go out and quit your job and have a full-time operation, a wholesaling operation. And then phase 4 is turn around and then being able to scale it to where you're, maybe making $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year and also building wealth through cash flow properties. So now, that's what this whole thing is about, and I teach specifically how to do it. Now, in this particular episode, we are going to talk about, now, I'll tell you how this came up real quick. I surveyed my subscribers, you guys listening to this, and I sent an email out and said, hey, if I was going to do a podcast on anything, what would it be? And I got I mean, I got hammered with responses, tons of incredible responses from all you guys all across the country. And in one of the thing, I've got some great ideas that I can share with you guys that I'll be covering here over the next 12 to 18 months or so. But one of the paramount things that people wanted to learn was how to write contracts, specifically how to write, what to say. So what I'm going to do in this particular episode, I'm going to talk about how to write a wholesale contract. Specifically how to do it. I'm going to tell you what to say and how to say it. How to write a buy-side contract, how to write a sell-side contract, right, with your buyer, how to write a property that's subject to the existing loan. How do you do that? And what I'm going to do is give you access at the end of the podcast. I'm going to tell you where to go so you can get and download my blank contracts so you can use them and modify them if you want and make any changes that you can kind of make it your own. And then you can listen to this podcast and know how to fill it out. So then you'll have 100% confidence going in and talking to a seller or a buyer on how to specifically write a contract. Okay, it's going to take that fear away, because I know, when I first got started, my first deal, I didn't have a podcast to listen to, YouTube to listen to, any of that type of stuff. I actually went to Staples, which is like Office Max, and I went in there. They had their contracts and form little area there, and I picked out a contract of, residential real estate contract, and I went and I met the motivated seller. Man, I didn't know what I was doing. I was tripping over myself. I was like scribbling. My hands were sweating. I was, all crumpled up. It was terrible. I was such a dork. And this guy's sitting there looking at me. Thank God he was motivated and he wanted to get out of the house, because I was like tripping over myself. So anyways, he signed the contract, and I remember leaving going, holy cow. And it's like scribbled mess, right? And brought it to a title company, and we opened up escrow, and then I turned around and marketed the property. I found a buyer, and I used the same contract from Staples, but we went down to a local McDonald's. We filled it out. He gave me a $2,000 earnest money deposit, and we wrote the contract for a higher price, and I made $11,008 on my first deal, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So hopefully I can explain how to do this so you have some confidence going in and writing your contract. Now, I also wrote a book in detail, specifically exactly how to quit your job in 19 weeks or less. It goes through in step by step, week by week, on exactly what you need to do and how to run a wholesale operation. Now, the bottom line is this. I've had people tell me that they have spent well over $1,000 for the same information I give for free, and you can get that at flip2freedom.com, flip2freedom.com. There'll be a video of me on the front page. You can just enter your email, and I'll send you a special link of where you can download that book for free. Now, before I get into the meat here, I want to acknowledge several people that went into iTunes and submitted reviews. And they submitted reviews, and first one came here from Glenn429. It says, 5 stars, great content. Sean provides an excellent, the content that Sean provides is excellent, and anyone can learn tons from the podcast. I have learned so much from Sean on this podcast. Sean is the real deal. The audio sounds great, Sean. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you very much, Glenn. Appreciate that. Next one is from ID2TETT on March 30th. It says, Sean breaks down the steps necessary for getting and closing deals, from getting together a team to marketing, assessing, negotiating, paperwork, and more. 5 stars all the way. And 5 stars, inspiration, motivation, and information. So thank you so much for submitting that review. The next one is from Patrick Shandy on March 24th, and he actually gave a 3-star review, and here's what he said. He said, there is definitely filtered information, but mostly success stories and how happy people are that they joined Sean's Academy. I'm looking for hard facts, not happy people. Okay, so Patrick, first off, I want to thank you for going in and taking your time and submitting the review. Greatly appreciate it. But if you look at the other, 150 plus reviews there, you'll see that I am known for delivering content, raw, meaty, unadulterated content of exactly specifically how to do the business. I do include success stories of people that went out and used the principle, because the success stories give people inspiration that they can go out and do it too. So what I would do is go out and listen to the rest of the episodes. I have 83 different episodes. Go listen to the ones like on how to negotiate with sellers, or how to build $10,000 a month, or any one of these are go in detail specifically on exactly how to do that, and hopefully I will earn your respect or whatever, to where you can see that I do deliver phenomenal content. Or just listen to this episode and I'll teach you how to fill out a purchase contract. All right. So enough of that. We are going to get into how to write a purchase contract. Okay. Now, first off, when we're writing a contract, and I'm going to tell you first off, before I even get into this, disclaimer. First off, I'm not your attorney. The information I'm going to give you in this podcast right now is for informational purposes only. You're not supposed to, don't use it. Go out in your market and use it until you consult with your attorney, because I can give you information, but I don't know if it's viable in your market, whatever. So I would say consult an attorney. And I'm saying that because I'm not an attorney. I'm just going to tell you what works for me. Okay. And the reason is because this podcast, 50 million people across there, 100,000 people a month listen to this podcast all across the country. So I don't want any ideas that I'm giving you advice on legal advice on how to write a purchase contract. Okay. So enough of that. Now let's get into exactly what to do. First off, if you know what FreedomSoft is a software, it's a tool that we use to manage our business for seller leads, buyer leads, and also generating contracts. Inside of FreedomSoft, they have a contract that we use, and it generates a contract, and it's great because it's fillable right online, and it's very, very easy to use and be able to submit. And you can email the sellers or even buyers back and forth, which is great. So basically what I'm going to do is go through that contract, and I'm going to provide a blank contract. At the end, I'll tell you where you can get a blank contract that you can use as a contract to use in your business. Okay, so first off, it says parties at the top. It says owner of record. So that's the owner of record that's going to sign on their behalf, and you want to make sure, obviously, that you have the owner of record you're talking to, and not their brother or friend or uncle, because it won't be a legal binding contract. So it says they're herein successors, administrators, and assignees as sellers whose address is blah, 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 whatever the case may be. So you're going to have the address there, 1234, whatever street, and your name or your company. Okay. Now, it could be your name or your company that is going to be signing the contract. And it says, and or assigns their heirs, successors, administrators, and assignees as buyer whose mailing address is X. And you can put your mailing address in there if you want, which I typically don't. So on here now, what does it mean by assigns? It says your company and or assigns. And or assigns gives you the ability to assign the contract. What does assign mean? Assign means sell the contract. So you have the right to sell the contract. So if you get a contract for $50,000 and you have a buyer for 57,000, you can assign or sell that contract legally by this right here, and turn around and collect $7,000. You can assign it for $7,000 to the buyer. Okay, and what they'll do is they will assume your position in the contract, and they will go to closing based on the terms in the contract. Okay, so you can assign that. So here it says it goes in the next line is subject property, right? And then it goes through the subject property. This is legal description. Now, typically in the legal description box, I put to be filled in by escrow or title, or if you're in New York, an attorney or whatever. So then the escrow company can fill in that information. That will be the legal description, the book and the map, or wherever it's at. All right, now it's going to be sales price. Now, sales price on here, let's call it $50,000. So you put sales price in there. And under that, it's going to say subject to. Okay, well, subject to could be, and we'll talk about how to write a contract with seller financing, but subject to would be subject to what? Subject to $30,000 loan. And then you can put the terms in there, which we'll get into. Equity. In some states like California, you have to purchase equity. So you have to, in the contract, you have to have put in there how much equity you're purchasing. And then payable. Right? Payable, I typically use that blank because it's going to be a cash transaction. Now, in here it says existing mortgage, existing financing on subject property will be current in all payments and principal and interest, late charges, and escrow amounts required by mortgagee. Escrow balances has been calculated into the price and will transfer to the buyer along with title. Buyer will take the title subject to its debt. This right here, and this is in this contract I'm reading, the existing mortgages, that means that if you're buying the property subject to, then all the mortgage payments will be brought current, and you're purchasing the property subject to the existing debt. Now, expenses, buyer pays all closing costs. Insurance, as consideration for this purchase, the seller will assign all insurance policies on property to buyer, and seller will grant a limited power of attorney to buyer to deal with the lender and insurance providers. Now, this is, again, if it's subject to. If you're dealing with a subject to property, you can do that in this situation. Typically, when I purchase a property that I am going to keep, right? If I'm going to keep it, then I'll buy it subject to, and I will do this. Okay, I will. They can assign the insurance, or I can get a limited power of attorney on the property to talk to the lender and talk to the insurance company. Now, when I flip properties, let's talk about flipping properties. I do not flip subject tos. I flip agreement for sales. In this case, the insurance would stay in place. Right, the insurance would stay in place, and the title would stay in place. Now, when you do a subject to, the title transfers and the loan stays in the seller's name. When you do an agreement for sale, it's agreed to when the existing loan is paid off, then the title will transfer. But an agreement for sale, land contract, or contract for deed give you a little bit more control over the property, and also gives you the ability to write off any interest payments on the property as well. So now, risk of loss. If the subject property is damaged prior to transfer of title, buyer has the option of accepting any insurance proceeds with the title to the property in as-is condition, or canceling this contract and accepting the return of the deposit. Prorations. Okay, prorations, real property taxes will be prorated based on the current year's tax without allowance for discounts, including homestead or other exemptions. Rents will be current and can be prorated as to the date of the title transfer. Prorations is typically tax prorations. That means you pay up to the date, or the seller pays up to the date of closing, and then you take it from that point forward. So, let's say taxes are paid quarterly, and you've got $400 of taxes that's due on that quarter, and you buy it in, say, month 3, then the seller will pay $300, and you'll pay $100, and because you'll pay that next quarter for $100 there. So now, next one's defects. Seller warrants subject property be free from hazardous substance, from any violations or zoning, environmental, building, health, and governmental codes and ordinance. Seller further warrants that there is no material or other known defects or facts regarding this property which would adversely affect the value of the said property. So basically, this is warranting that the seller doesn't have a crack house or something like that in the back room, and all of a sudden, you don't see it or don't know it or something like that, or it was a crack house prior, and you have to do some sort of remediation on the property to get it up to a sellable position. So typically, and I can tell you this, when you're dealing with distressed properties, you're going to come across all sorts of stuff. I've come across crack houses. I've come across mold infested, that stuff was growing on the walls that I never even saw before. I mean, I had to go in, I had to cover my mouth. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I've been in great, beautiful houses that were phenomenal condition, but there was a crack, there was a slap in the there was a crack in the slab, that was pretty much unknown. It looked like the whole roof was kind of, if you didn't really look closely, the whole roof was just, kind of leaning just a little bit. So So those are things that the seller must warrant. No judgments. Okay, the seller warrants that there are no judgments threatening the equity in the subject property, that there are no bankruptcies pending or contemplated by any other title holder. That means, it's funny because it's not funny. I did this one property once, and the seller sold it to me and sold it to another guy. Okay, so the other guy, and we went in, we came in, we bought it, we closed it with hard money, we went in, we fixed it up, and this was a fix and flip property we were doing. And then next thing you know, we find out that the other buyer put a lien on the title, basically clouding the title because he said he had equitable interest in the property, and now we had to go negotiate with him to get him to remove his equitable contract on the property, and it turned into a lawsuit, which was cost $25,000. So this right here warrants, right, that the seller is basically not in contract with anybody else. Right, seller will not further encumber the property, and an affidavit may be recorded in buyer's expense, putting the public notice that the closing of this contract will extinguish liens and encumbrances hereafter recorded. Okay, radon gas and lead paint disclosure. Right, and these are all things that are just disclosures in the contract. It's a 2-page contract that you can read. You can download. Possession of the property and occupancy, tenants accepted with all keys and garage door openers will be delivered to the buyer, and when title transfers at the close of title, leases and security deposits will transfer to the buyer. Inspections. This contract is contingent upon buyer's inspection and approval of the property prior to transfer of title. Seller agrees to provide access to the buyer's representative prior to transfer before transfer of title for inspection, repairs, and to market the property. Okay, so what does that do? That gives you the ability, before title transfers, that you can go in and inspect the property and check it out, and it's contingent. What does that mean? What does contingent mean? Contingent, that means that this entire contract is contingent upon you inspecting the property prior to title transferring. So that's a potential out clause. Acceptance. This instrument will become binding contract when accepted by the seller and signed by both seller and buyer. If it is not accepted and signed the seller prior to X date, so whatever date you can put in there, this contract shall be void. Now, why is this in there? Because I submit a lot of contracts to sellers, and I'll be blasting them out there to these sellers and stuff. And I just don't want to have all these contracts out there, and all of a sudden the guy signs it 6 months from now, and the market conditions change, and the comps changed in that particular area, and now he signs it, then I sign it. Now we have a legal binding contract, even though I do have out clauses in the contract. I don't want to do that. So what I specifically say, and also it creates an urgency that, listen, this contract needs to be executed because I have other offers on properties, right? We need to get this contract executed on or before this date, or it becomes null and void. And typically sellers will comply to that. Now, deposit. Upon acceptance, buyer will place in escrow an earnest money deposit of X. Now, I can tell you this, 99.9% of the times I do not deposit anything. So I'll put a 0 there, 0 with X title, Pioneer Title, which will be part of the cash paid to the seller when title transfers. This deposit will be returned to the buyer if title does not transfer in accordance to this agreement, and the said title company will close this transaction. So, even if you do put 300, 500, 1,000, 10,000, whatever the number will be, it'll come back to you as fully refundable. Back to you if the title doesn't transfer for any reason whatsoever. Now, like I said, 90% of the time I just put 0, and typically the seller doesn't even care. Now, seller agrees that the buyer may Here's in the seller. It says, agrees that the buyer may place signs and show the property immediately upon acceptance of this contract by both parties. Now, that is a little touchy, right? Because typically what you do And I'm going to put you. I'm going to basically read you what I put in the section where it says other agreements. So there's a full understanding here. And when I'm talking to a seller, right, and I typically tell them to say, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do with the property. I don't know if I'm going to keep it for myself, right, and just hold on to it as a rental. I don't know if I'm going to fix and flip it. I don't know if I'm going to resell it and resell it to one of my other investors that I deal with in my investment group. I don't know what I'm going to do with it right now, but all I know is you're going to get your price, $50,000, and you're going to get it on the date accepted, subject to me obviously looking through the property that the title's clean and everything's good to go on this thing. So one part, and when it deals with that, when it says seller agrees to that the buyer may place signs and show the property, sometimes that might create a red flag for a seller. But just let them know. Say, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do with the property right now. I will at closing, but the bottom line is we're agreeing, and you're going to get this price, and that's what it's going to be. Now, closing, and then I'll get into it, other agreements here in a second. Now, closing, it says closing will take place on or before a date at blank title. Okay. Subject to a blank and day period in which the buyer and seller shall be permitted to clear any title problems. Now, the Freedom Soft contract automatically generates a 90-day time frame. You can put 90 days. The longer you have in the contract, the better. I can tell you that. If you have 90 days, great. You have more time to sell the property. A lot of sellers, though, they want to move, and they want to move quickly. So you might want to put that to 30 days or 45 days, you can say, that to be able to clear any title problems. So that will give you basically 45 days to close the transaction. And, guess what? You can back out of the contract for any reason whatsoever prior to, you can do an inspection prior to any, closing day. And if you want to back out, you can back out, because this contract is contingent upon buyer's inspection and approval of the property prior to transfer of title. Okay, so you have to give the approval. If you don't approve, then you can back out. So that right there gives you what's called an out clause. Now, there's other out clauses, and this is under other agreements. Contract subject to partner's approval. So what does that mean? Contract is subject to the partner's approval, meaning I could be your partner, and if I don't approve because the pricing's messed up, well, guess what? We can back out of the contract. So how do you back out of a contract? You can simply tell the escrow company that you back out because your partner didn't approve per line or whatever, per other agreements, right? Or you can just submit an email or a letter to title and a letter to the owner letting them know that you're backing out of the contract. I would call them and talk to them and discuss it with them. And I typically don't back out of contracts. I very, very rarely back out of contracts unless two things happen. Number one, I can't sell it. Number two, let's say, for example, I have a $50,000 contract, and the highest I can get is $45,000. I'll go back to the seller and say, "Listen, I've done everything I could. I went in to try to make my numbers work at $50,000. It didn't work, so I showed my other investor friends to see if they could make it work at $50,000. They could make it work at $50,000. So if we want to make a deal on this thing, we can get this sucker closed. We can close it next week, but I got to be at $50,000 or $40,000. So you get a contract at $45,000. Or you have a contract you could get at $45,000, you get the seller now to renegotiate down to $40,000, right? Then you could make a deal. Now, what if the seller says, absolutely not, I'm not budging lower than $50,000? Well, guess what? You know what? I'm going to cancel the contract subject to partner's approval. My partners aren't approving on this thing, so we're out. And then the other one I put in there is buyer agrees to pay all closing costs. Now, you could split closing costs with seller if you want. I typically pay all closing costs because I have a deal with a title company that they give me discount rates. Now, other agreements that I put in the contract. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you what I put in for other agreements. This could be done on a separate addendum, or I just have it typed right in here in the other agreements section. Okay, and these are other other things you can put in. It says my company LLC and or Sean Terry is agreeing to purchase this property to rent, lease, assign, or sell for a profit. Okay, so what am I saying? I'm saying that I'm an investor and I'm in the business of making a profit. So I'm going to purchase this property. I'm going to rent it, lease it, fix it, sell it. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for a profit. It is further understood that the buyer, right, me, is not intending to occupy the property as a residence. Right? Seller fully understands that the buyer and or his representatives are not earning any fee or commission from the sale. This will cover you because so if they say, okay, you're a realtor and you're representing, well, you're not representing anybody because you're an investor. So what does that say again? Is that a seller fully understands that the buyer and or his representatives are not earning any fee or commission from the seller. Seller should not expect any representation from the buyer and or its representatives on all legal or financial questions should be answered by the seller's broker or legal advisor. So what does this do? This basically is telling the seller, say, listen, you're in it for a profit and you're not representing them. And if they do have any questions at all whatsoever, contact your legal advisor or your broker for more information. So what that does is if there is anything that comes up, and in real estate, there are things that come up. I can tell you, if you do a ton of deals, things will come up. Sellers will say things and, it might not be true, and you can revert back to the contract. And seller might be mad or something, which very, very rarely happens. Most of the sellers hug me. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. If you build a level of rapport with the seller, then guess what? If they turn around and you sell it and you make a $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 profit, so be it. That's your business. That's what you've done. But this right here will say, listen, I didn't represent you, and I told you I was making a profit. You initialed right there that I'm here making a profit. I'm an investor. I'm not buying retail, and I'm not living there. Okay? So it explains in detail, and you're completely covered exactly basically what you're doing. And that's why I tell the seller. I say, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do. I could fix and flip it. I could lease it. I could rent it. I could sell it. I don't know. But the bottom line is I'm here to make a profit, and you're going to get your price. And that's the bottom line. So now, that is a contract to purchase. Okay, if you're going to purchase a property for wholesale. Now, let's talk about. Should we do subject to? All right, let's go back and do subject to. So it's basically the exact same contract. The only difference is now we're going to have subject to in there. So subject to. So sales price. Let's call it, say, $50,000. Subject to a $40,000 loan, right? So you're going to put $40,000 subject to an existing $40,000 loan. And then on there, payments of X, interest of X. Okay, so it'll be subject to a $40,000 loan, payments of X, interest of X. Now, when it says payable, right? What you're going to do in the payable section there is basically what you're going to do is you're going to say seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale, land contract or contract for deed, or subject to, convey title via an agreement for sale on an exact wrap of the existing loan of X dollars for the term of X years, right? For the term of X years with payments of X. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that basically what the seller is doing is they're going to convey title via an agreement for sale. Now remember, I flip agreement for sales. I buy subject twos. Now I want a subject to, I want to own the property. If I'm going to flip them, then I'm going to flip agreement for sales because title doesn't transfer and there's no potential risk of any due on sale clause from the lender in that case. And once the buyer pays off the property, then the title would transfer. So what I'm going to do is with a seller, I'm going to say, hey, listen, seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale on an exact wrap of the existing loan in the amount of X dollars with an interest of X amount with a payment of X dollars. Okay? And that's what it's going to say. So now, and then your other agreements here, right? Your other agreements, what you're going to do is buyer agrees to pay seller X amount of dollars at closing. Let's call it $5,000. So even in the sales price, I probably see in the sales price, I would put see other agreements. Because see other agreements was what's going to do is going to say, okay, the payable here is the loan that you're going to wrap, the existing loan, the exact wrap on the existing loan. Meaning, if you have a seller and the seller has a $40,000 existing loan and it's at 5% with $400 a month payments, theoretically, but they want to get $50,000, what do? How do you structure that type of deal? Well, what you're going to do is this. What you're going to do is you're going to say, listen, buyer agrees to pay seller $10,000 of closing subject to the existing loan being X, $40,000. Now, what if the loan is, you have to put $40,000 in there, the interest and the payment in there, because that will give you any type of out clause to renegotiate if for some reason the loan amount comes out at 45. Well, you're not going to give him $10,000 if the loan comes out at 45 when he disclosed that the loan amount's $40,000. So what you do is say, seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale on the exact wrap of the existing loan of $40,000, right, for the term of 5 years, with interest of X and payments of Y. Okay? So what that's going to do is that now it's going to spell it all out. Now, if the interest is different, the payments are different, the loan amount's different, it all opens up renegotiation. Because what you don't want to do is agree to give them $10,000, then the loan amount comes back at $45,000, and now you're actually buying it for more than you suspected. So in that type of case, I would go back and renegotiate with the seller and say, listen, you told me it was $40,000, it came out $45,000. Well, guess what? Instead of $10,000, we're going to have to give you $5,000 to make the deal work for me, and then you send them an addendum with that changes, and basically spelling it out that buyer agrees to pay seller $5,000 at closing versus $10,000. All the other agreements remain the same. So that's how you would write out a subject to contract. Now, let's talk about how to write a contract with the buyer. Now, I'm going to give you my blank contract. I'm going to give you in a Word format, and I'm going to give you the other contract in a blank format that you can fill out and use. But this will I'll give you in a Word format, so because I have my company and my information on there. So I'm going to give it to you in Word, and you can make it your own if you want. Now, again, remember, go back to your attorney, have them review it before you use it. All right, so this is agreement to sell real estate. In this particular one, it says this is a legal binding contract entered on this day. Of course, you put and this is your contract with the buyer. Now, what I do is I have on my website at phoenixwholesalehomes.com, under the How It Works tab, I have the contract there. You can just download it, but it has all my information on there. But what happens is that I just have buyers. Like I sold the property today. Buyer called me up and said, hey, we like this property. What do we do? I said, here, go to my website, go to the section, download the thing, fill it out, fax it back, and we'll open up escrow on Monday. So they were like, okay, great. So and guess what? They automatically just do it. People that know my way of work, they just go to the website, they download it, they print it, and I just get these faxes coming in. People buying the properties, and I either accept it or I don't. Most people, offer full price, and that's how they do it. So in this contract right here, you're going to put the date. Okay, here receipt is hereby acknowledges the sum of $2,500 non-refundable. Now, from the buyer, I get $2,500 non-refundable. Why do I do that? Because guess what? I don't want them to back out. Because I am essentially taking the property off the market, and I don't want them to back out. So I have a non-refundable deposit. So someone calls me up and says, hey, I'm interested in the property. I say, great, go to fill out my contract. It's a $2,500 non-refundable deposit. And they go, well, I don't have an inspection period. No, you don't have an inspection period. Listen, when you're ready to commit to the property and you're ready to write a check for $2,500 non-refundable, then you call me. Other than that, I have a bunch of other people that typically buy at the auctions, and they put up a $10,000 non-refundable, and they have to close within 24 hours. So that's a typical client that I work with. So I typically don't give any inspections unless I'm dealing with multi-units and they have to get in the property. Okay. Now, $2,500 non-refundable deposit from buyer, typically an LLC. Conditions are stated herein. Description of the property, the lot, place, parcel, land situation, Maricopa County, state of Arizona. And then it put the address of the property, the city, the state, the zip is self-explanatory, the APN, and that's, we call it the Arizona parcel number. That could be the parcel ID for the property. Put that in there. For the purchase of X, and it's spelled out. $157,000.00, and then it has a place where you can write it in $157,000. Now, terms of the sale. Now, sometimes, let's say if it's let's say there's a tenant inside there, right? And I'm going to give them a 48-hour inspection to get in there and be able to view the property. And after that, they would go non-refundable. So what I would put in there in the other terms and condition is seller agrees to give buyer 48 hours to inspect the interior of the property. And after that point, they shall go non-refundable. Okay. And that's it. That's all I have on here. If there's any broker commissions, I put NA. You get a purchaser, they sign it, and that's it. And that is in my contract. And on the front page of on that, I have instructions for submitting the offer. It says to submit an offer, please submit the attached contract and addendum. You must also deposit $2,500 earnest money for your offer and contract to be complete. You may wire or drop off funds to, and then it has the title information for Eileen Brown. Unless your offer is all cash, you need to get approved with hard money lender and submit proof of funds for approval with this offer. If you have hard money, please call me, and they got my number for any recommended hard money lenders if they're looking for a hard money lender. To view the property, please contact me for any arrangements to be obtained. Most of our properties are sold very quickly. We do, however, take backup contracts. So this is on my contracts that I have inside there. So then people, it's very easy. They just read that, and you can swipe it if you want. I'll give you the Word doc in here, and you can just make it your own, make it whatever, and just put it somewhere where you can either email it or if you have a website, put it on there where they can download it. Okay, and it gives them instructions on exactly what to do, and it makes my life 1,000 times easier because I don't fill any contracts. Now if I have a buyer that I want to meet and they bought multiple properties, I might go meet them, but I can tell you right now, man, I've been so stinking busy, selling 15, 20 properties a month, 10 properties a month, that I say, listen, here, go to my website, fill out the contract, fax it back, and then from there, Eileen, my title officer, she takes care of everything else, and she cranks it out. She'll turn around, she'll get everything together and turn around and put it together to get the sucker sold. Now, when you write the contract for a subject to with a buyer, what do? Same thing. You say, listen, seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale on exact wrap of existing loan of $40,000 with a payment amount of X. And so you do the exact same thing. But this in here is that buyer agrees to purchase the property for $70,000, right? Of which buyer agrees to put down X amount of cash. So remember we had our example there, and I think if I remember correctly, it was a $40,000 loan, $50,000 purchase price, right? So we're coming in with $10,000. So in this case, we're going to have the buyer now, we sold it for $70,000, come in with $20,000, right? And $30,000. We're going to have the buyer come in with $30,000, of which 10 goes to the seller. Right? And then they're going to take over the property with the existing loan of $40,000 in place. How much do we make? $20,000. See, these are great because what you're doing is you're just stacking on profit on top of the down payment. $10,000 goes to the seller. You sell it for $30,000. $20,000 goes to you. $10,000 goes to the seller, and they get to buy a property with an existing loan in place with a great interest rate for maybe 5 years because you structured it correctly like that. So what you would do is say, you would sell it for $70,000, of which $40,000 seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale on exact wrap of the existing loan of X, $40,000 for the term of X, 5 years, for an interest rate of X, 5%, for a payment of Y. $400 a month. Okay. And that's how you structure that and set that up correctly. All right. So now that is how, exhausted. All right. So that's how you write purchase contracts. Now, what you can do is you can go to the website there, my website, flip2freedom.com, and under this post, number 83, you can go down at the bottom, you can scroll down, and you can download you'll be able to download the blank contract or the FreedomSoft contract that I use for the purchasing the property from the seller. Okay, and then you can download the doc version I have of my instructions to submit an offer, and I'll take out all my stuff on there, and I can just leave it. I'll upload that so you guys can then download that and use that. Now, again, make sure you consult your attorney before you do that. All right, now That's how you do that. Now let's talk about something incredibly important. Okay. Now here is, and we're going to talk about faith. Okay. And it's going to be a different type of faith, other than, how many type of faiths are there, but we're going to talk about applied faith. Now, applied faith comes from, when I initially kind of heard it, obviously from the Bible, but also Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. Now, Napoleon Hill did a study. If you have not read the book Think and Grow Rich, you have got to read the book Think and Grow Rich. It's a phenomenal book. And what Napoleon Hill did is he went out, and if you haven't read it in a while, go back and read it again. I mean, I've read that book so many times. I have audiobooks of it. I listen to it. I have downloads of Napoleon Hill on his speaking live and stuff. It's great, phenomenal information that works that you can apply in your life. So anyways, Napoleon Hill went out and researched all the people that were broke, and he researched all the people that were wealthy, and he came up with a distinct difference on why people are rich and why people are broke. And he wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, and he specifies specifically exactly the steps that you have to take to become wealthy. And one of them is applied faith. Okay, and he's taken this from all these unbelievably successful people in our history, and he said one of their success traits is applied faith. And what he says, his quote is about applied faith is a mental attitude wherein you can clear your mind of all fears and doubts and direct it to an attainment of what you desire. Okay? So what does that mean? Clear your mind of any fears or doubts. See, let me ask you this. Can you have faith and fear at the same time? You can't do it, right? And it's funny because in the Bible, it said that if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, right, you can move mountains or accomplish all things. So I never really understood what that meant. But have you ever saw a mustard seed? You ever held a mustard seed in your hand? A mustard seed is the size of a pinhead. It's this little tiny thing, right? Little mustard seed. Well, what that was meant is that if you have the faith, the size of a mustard seed, meaning if you have faith at all, because if you have faith, there is no doubt. The doubt is gone. And see, if you have doubt, you cannot have faith. So it's not the size of the faith you have. You don't have to have, I have to have a ton of faith. You have to have faith the size of a mustard seed, just a small little mustard seed. And because you have that faith, there is an absence of doubt, because you cannot have doubt and faith at the same time. Now, when you deal with, with faith, faith is where it's like a belief. It's a belief that is something. It's tough to explain. Explain it like this. What if you had $500,000 in your bank right now? And I'm gonna relate this specific to money. Okay, specific to money. What if you had $500,000 in the bank right now, right? When it comes to financial, right? How would you feel? Would you have worry? Would you have doubt? Would you have fear? Would you have those three things? Would you worry about that? No, you wouldn't. You would be lighthearted. You wouldn't be worried. You wouldn't have any fear, especially when it comes about finances and money, right? You might have other fears about other different things, but those, whatever. But I'm talking about finances because, when you're doing this business and you're out marketing for sellers and you're marketing for buyers and you're putting forth effort and you're doing this stuff, right? And if you have doubts and you have fears and you have worries, those are negative attractor factors that will stop you from obtaining the success that you want to obtain. Now, in the beginning, I told you that faith is the bridge to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Now, where you are might be, you might be in a financial wreck right now. You might be, it's sad. I put out this, this information on that survey I put out there, and I get tons of responses. But, so many people are in tough situations, man. They got beat up by this recession. They got laid off. They've got, they're broke. They're on their last leg. They're, just depressed and down and out, and they're looking for something to grab onto, inspiration. So, what do you say? What do you say? You say, listen, is that this is the vehicle. Real estate is a vehicle. Listen to my podcast, read my book, go through in detail, listen to it. This is a vehicle. But if you're missing faith, right? Faith in a belief that you can go out and do this and this works, then you are going to be struggling, almost like going upstream to accomplish this business. It's going to be very difficult for you to do it. Have you ever met someone where everything just sucks in their life? Everything is a struggle. Everything is difficult. That is a person that their predominant feelings or thought are worry, fear, doubt, disbelief. That is their predominant thoughts. I guarantee it. You cannot be happy, blissful, excited, motivated, confident, and faithful and go out and have terrible results. You can't do it. See, so what would life be like for you with no worries? What would it be like? Now, I want to talk about real quick is that and this is very important because this is how I was. I would say I had faith. I would say I was positive. I would say I believed, but my actions contradicted to what I said. Hey, I'm a positive, motivated person. I'm motivated. I'm positive. Hey, right? But then my actions would completely contradict what I said. How about you? Right? So here's what I mean. And I'm talking specifically about money. Is that I would say, yes, I'm confident, I'm motivated, I'm successful. I don't have any doubt. I don't have any fears. I'm confident. I'm focusing on what I want, right? And then when I went to go spend money, or my wife would go spend money, or my kids would go spend money, or I'd go anything like that, spend money, I'd freak. I would be like, I get all, and my insides would just, and I had this massive internal struggle because of spending money. I would have a hard time at it. Or even if my wife was talking about, and she was dreaming and saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, maybe I'm a whack job, I don't know, maybe I am. But anyways, I want to do this, and she would say all these things that I knew would take a ton of money to do all these things. I would get this internal battle, and I would resist. I mean, I'm talking about massive resistance. So what I was saying wasn't in line by what my actions were, right? So, I would go to the restaurant and I'd look at the cheapest thing on the menu. And my entire decision process was based upon price. That's it. Money, that's it. Now, is there being frugal? Yes, you can be frugal. Yes, you can be conservative. Yes, you can be good with your money and stuff like that. But there's a difference, especially if there's an internal struggle, because I wasn't coming from the fact of being frugal and conservative. I was coming from the fact of fear and worry that, oh my gosh, if I spend this money, I'm not going to have any more left, or where else the other money going to come from, and this, that, and the other, and da da da. Right? So there was a contradiction between what I said and what my actions were. So look at your current. First off, look what you're saying. Look what you're telling yourself. Your story. Right? If you tell yourself, oh, my life sucks, I'm just getting by, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I can't afford this. Well, if you continue telling that story, you're going to continue getting that life. Because the beautiful thing about life is this, is that where we are right now is only temporary. This is a temporary spot. Okay, that's it. So if you want to change where you're going, right, you have to change your story. Start telling a story of where you want to go, where you're going, things you're going to do, things are going to be great, right? And start thinking and really diving your brain into where you want to go and what you want to be, right? But then when it comes to testing your faith, because see, God will test you. I tell you right now, he's going to put you in a position where, you're going to say, okay, listen, I want success. I want results. But then he's going to say, okay, listen, you have an opportunity to now send mailers to 1,000. And you go, I can't afford that. I can't afford to send an email to 1,000. That's testing your faith, right? Or you say, I'm going to set up a Google AdWords campaign and get it going. But, oh my gosh, it's $50 a day, $10 a day. And I'm not saying at all to overspend over your budget, but God will test. Now, if your internal is going, I can't afford it, I can't. See, I'm telling you, it's difficult. And it's a test to test, if you have faith or not. Because let me ask you this: if you had $500,000 in the bank, right? And how would you act then? How would you act when it came to spending money at the restaurant? Hey, get what you want, no problem, right? If it came to sending that mailer out, yeah, go ahead and do it because you knew it was there. See, this is the secret, is you have to know the money's there before it is and act as if the money's there before it is. And that is the hardest part. Now, I'm going to give you a couple books to reference. Number one, read the book, The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn. The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn. It's a phenomenal book, and it talks about faith. And I think she wrote it back in 19 whenever. Great book. Another book, it will give you an idea, is from Jerry and Esther Hicks, and they talk about prosperity and abundance and the law of attraction and how that. Now, I believe in certain things, but I don't believe in all of things that they're talking about. Okay, I believe in certain things, but not all things. Now, I'm going to also tell you another great book that I love is what's called Jesus Calling, and that's a great book. And actually, I have an iPad app for it, and I actually have an iPhone app. But it's something I read every single morning because it instills my faith and my belief that, guess what? There's a higher being. There's God out there, whatever you want to call it, Allah, whatever, of God, whatever it is, infinite intelligence, infinite spirit, whatever. There is a higher being out there, and there is a faith, an applied faith that Napoleon Hill talks about that successful people have that unsuccessful people don't have. Okay? So now, I'm going to also give you this, is that how do you destroy, right, that worry, that fear, that not knowing? How do you destroy that? How do you get rid of that? How do you, what is the step you can do to get rid of that? And here is the best way I can possibly do it. It's by repeating an affirmation continuously all day long, all day long, all day long. When you have an idol in your mind's idle and you feel fear coming over, repeat this affirmation I'm going to give you. Repeat it before you go to bed. Repeat it when you wake up in the morning. Repeat it over and over and over and over and over again. Because when you repeat over and over and over and over again an affirmation, it sinks deep in your subconscious mind. And guess what? You start believing it. And here is the affirmation. It says, I have fearless faith because I know God is my unfailing and immediate supply of all good and abundance that is mine by divine right. Okay? So you can put, I have fearless faith because I know that infinite intelligence is my unfailing and immediate supply of all good and abundance that is mine by divine right. You can put whatever you want in there. But the bottom line is, I have fearless faith. I have fearless faith. Fearless, what is fearless faith? Fearless faith. And you can say it, but is your actions? Do you have fearless faith in your actions? Are those actions coinciding? And that is the bridge to go from where you are to where you want to be. To have faith, right, and fearless action, fearless faith and fearless actions, that will get you to where you want to be. By applying, guess what? Because guess what? This business, it might take some marketing. Well, guess what? You have to have a certain level of faith to put out the marketing and spend money on that will return. It will come back, full, right? Like I tithe. I'm a big believer in tither. Well, when I write a check to church for $10,000, hey, it takes faith. When I write a check for $10,000 or whatever it might be or more, So when I write a check to tithing of 10% of whatever I took in for the month, Well, guess what? It takes faith to be able to be able to do that. And repeat this. I have fearless faith because I know God is my unfailing and immediate supply of all good and abundance that is mine by divine right. So now, repeat that over and over and over again. And what that will do will sink deep in your heart. It'll sink deep in your beliefs. It'll sink deep in your subconscious mind. And it will eliminate that fear, that doubt, that scared, and if you can eliminate that and you can feel a calm inside when it comes to your finances, when it comes to spending money, if you can stabilize that internal juggle that you have with that, then abundance will come. Because you know what, you'll put out marketing and deals will come in that you're like, you can't even believe where they came in. I mean, you're just like, wow, where'd that come from? Or people will bring you leads. Like, I'll give you an example. It's really amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. This guy calls me up. I don't even know him. He listened to my podcast. He's here in Phoenix, and he said, "Hey, I got this deal. I typically fix and flip and buy and hold, but I got this deal. I want to wholesale, and it's a 8 unit or it's a 12 unit beat up nasty apartment complex. Can you help me out?" Lead out of nowhere. Didn't even know. Okay, I said, sure. Got an option on the property. He gave me a price on it for $12,000 a door, and I turned around and sold it in $15,000 profit. Okay, in a week. So last week I didn't have that deal. This week, $15,000 profit. Well, I didn't know where that lead was going to come from. But it's amazing because it's just when I am tested with faith, I'll take it on head on, and because I have that unfailing, that fearless faith that I just push through it. Like, for an example, this live event. We have a live event coming up in Scottsdale, Arizona. You can go to flip2freedom.com/extreme-freedom. flip2freedom.com/extreme-freedom. You can go there, and there's a video of me, but it'll explain, but we're having our first live event. Well, guess what? I've never done a live event before, I've spoken public before, but, I've never put on my own personal live event. Don't know how to do it. Never done it before, but guess what? It's going to rock. I know it's going to rock. I just know it is. It's going to be awesome, because we're going to share all this phenomenal information. So anyways, that's how you write a purchase contract. I hope it helped. Go to the website, check it out. You can download those contracts. And thanks again for everybody that went out and gave me some great feedback on that survey. Man, I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to try to cover everything I possibly can that you guys I'm going to first cover all the stuff that was repeated through all those different survey answers, and then I'm going to just start taking piece by piece and trying to cover everything I possibly can cover to give you everything you guys need so you can go out and become successful. And I hope that, and I hope I don't offend you when it comes to, anything with God, or if you're religious or whatever, but all I can tell you is this, is that, for me, it works in my life. You don't have to do it. You don't have to make it a part of your life or not. All I know is this, is it works for me, and it works for people that I share with people, because, I do talk to a lot of people. I coach people. I talk to people locally here, and when things are going wrong and they don't understand it, especially guys that are very analytical, because they have to have all the facts, and there is no facts in faith. There is none. There is none. That's what faith is. Faith is no facts. Faith is believing in the unseen, right? And analytical people have a very difficult time with facts. But but once you can conquer that, amazing things can happen in your life. And like I said, leads and deals and things will just come along, and everything you touch will turn to gold. So that's it. So like I said, if you want to go to the website, you can go there, or go to flip2freedom.com/extreme freedom, and you can check out the video there if you want to participate. We only have 100 spots for this first live event, because that's all the hotel room will hold comfortably, and that's it. So go to flip2freedom.com. Thank you very much for your time and all your information and all your help, and thank you, and take care, and God bless.